Welcome to Out of Pocket. This video is part 2 of a 2-part episode in which we give our full review on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet.
We shared our feelings on the main plot lines in the game last week, and we're going to be diving into our thoughts on game mechanics today.
We're going to start out with the battle mechanics. Curious what you think about those.
I didn't think it was bad. So this goes more to catching mons. Battling was fine. I thought, I wish that you could choose. There are some parts where you're able to battle with 2 Pokemon. Other parts where you cannot. It's cool that they have the ability for you to pull your Pokemon out and let it go battle on its own. But I also I wish you could do that with more than one. You should be able to send out 2 or 3, from your party at a time, because one Pokemon can only do so much, and sometimes you send them out and they just off one. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You are not where I'm trying to tell you to go. But yeah, navigating through the different moves and just the effects and all for it. I thought all of that was cool.
Yeah, I think my favorite new mechanic is the sending out the Pokemon. Because I would say one of my issues in Arceus, especially because of the fact that it's open world, was that you could pull out a Pokemon, but then they just stood there. You could talk to them, but you couldn't walk with them. So I was like, oh, I kind of wish you could actually hang out and walk around with your Pokemon. So I love that they brought that element, and I also love that they could also battle, which I was not using for a good chunk of the. I just forgot because it's just not a normal battle. And then I was like, oh, I could be doing this. I'm like, how do people get all the ingredients to make new moves, new TMs? You got to fight all. I'm like, no, duh. You can send them out, and they can just beat up a bunch of this, whatever you need and get their little materials. So
yeah,
I did love that. I wish that, like you said, you could pull out more. And the thing is that we know it's possible because they do it for the bases. So it's you have the ability, the mechanic is already in game,
right?
So why
it's built
can't we not
in,
just use it in the
all the time
in the overworld? Why can't we just use it and just have because now, to be fair, I don't know if it's because I have the Pokemon I have just to fight, and therefore when I send them out, they will go after everybody in that general vicinity, which I was hilarious. I was oh, I didn't mean to take out everybody over here. They were I was like, my bad. I ain't mean to take out your whole family. So they will continue, especially at a point when you have much higher mons than the mons that are in that area that you're in. They will just mollywop whole squad. It's not a problem, but I do like the idea of because I'm I want all my mons to be able to get XP and be able to do all that. So being able to send out your mons, have them all just kind of spread out, go wreak havoc while you just walking, especially while you walking. Because the thing is, that's when these mons are crafty in the trees. And they'll just wait till your mon that ran over there to beat up this little squad, and they'll run up on you aha, got you alone, which is disrespectful to me. But I love that mechanic, and I hope that they evolve it in future games. I think that's the mechanic that should be now part of the canon and just not change, or not reverted. I think it should be improved. Again, being able to send out multiple at once, or you know what I mean, keeping your mind on you, and they just having being able to maybe this mom always do this mom always do that, so they can walk with you, but you don't have to tell them to do stuff. They just be like, this me, I got it, handle, body. So I love that mechanic. And you brought up catching, I like that as a obvious natural follow up is the catching mechanic is upsetting because you have to fight. And that's the thing I loved in Arceus is that half of the catches I got were not aware of me. So I was able to sneak up, throw the ball, catch them off guard, get the Pokemon. They let Pokemon fall asleep. You can walk up on them, but you still can't catch them. You can catch them off guard, and it'll be like, that Pokemon was caught off guard. They can't move, which is supposed to apparently make them easier to catch, but has not been my experience. 85% of the time, they still jump out the ball. So I'm like, what is the at all purpose of this part of the mechanic because I have to go into the battle screen. I can't avoid it. I can't just throw the ball and hope they get in there. And if they don't, then it starts a battle. It's like, nope, they start a battle, period. And then when you do that and they too stunned to move, they ain't too stunned to jump out this ball. Like, I feel like the catching in this game for me felt like it was much more tedious and much more work.
It was.
Especially from Arceus, because Arceus, you could actually honestly plot and not have to engage with, like, you could, if you could plan your route, you could catch a bunch and not actually have to get into any battles. Like, I was out there just like stealthing Arceus. I was that one. And this one, you can stealth to a point, but you have to engage in battle.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because they want folks to like level up quickly, because I do feel like I leveled up faster in this game than I usually do. Like, I'm not as fast as a player of like you or like my partner Jerome, but I like having to battle so much, I was able to I basically have 2 full parties. I basically have like 12 Pokemon that are 60, 70, which is not usually something that
Oh yeah, no, I feel like it was the same for me in terms of, because you get XP for catching. So like, if I'm just out here throwing balls, catching while I'm running, I'm still getting, like, my mons are still getting XP for that. But also, if you have like a really low level mons in your party and you catching bigger mons, that still counts. So it's about the same. But I also like, to me, the catch rate is also bad. Like, I feel like I use way more balls on the whole in this game than I have ever used for the same amount of Pokemon. Like,
it's so expensive.
It's like too many balls to catch one mon. Even like, they're like, use a sleep move, put them to sleep. That don't work. Like, it'll work sometime, but not enough to make up for how long it takes to catch mons. You try to use a sleep move. You try to use, they like get their health to a certain level, but like, they have too many, wild Pokemon have too many self-destructive moves. They always want to do one of like double edge or something that
with recoil,
right? And so like, if I get their health down anywhere in there close to the red, and they use one of them moves, they get knocked out. So it's like, you got to invest too much time in trying to keep them alive to catch them when they can simply get in the ball. Like, I don't understand why we have to do this. And people are like, oh, you got to start using stronger balls. I, out the gate, will start with like a great or ultra, depending. And these are like level 30. I shouldn't have to use no ultra ball on you, quite frankly. Like, my expensive balls, like, they more expensive earlier in the game, especially when you don't have no money. The balls are expensive. You have to use way more than usual. Like, I used to just be able to walk up, boop, boop. Maybe I use 1 or 2, but mainly you get about 2, 3 catches. No, like, I have to have a whole fight. I got to use about 10 balls, and that was like the early part of the game. So that's like when you barely have money because you don't make that much fighting people in the street. And plus, depending on which route you go, you don't even meet that many people in the street. I didn't start fighting people until I was like halfway. I had to go back. I still trying to go back and find people.
I would get to some Pokemon centers and they'd be like, "You ain't fight nobody." And I was like, "There was nobody here."
I'm like, I have to actively, like, I am still actively finding people to fight to get to whatever, how many to get my little prize. I don't need it. It's just the principle of the thing. But I'm like, where are these people at? Now I'm mopping them up because they level 12. I'm level like 70. Like, I hate this for you. But yeah, the catching mechanism is, that needs to be tweaked. The catch rate is too low for like the balls, and like, even when you have like a duck ball and you in the cave, it should be work better. It don't work that much better than any other ball for me or at night. The only balls that seem to be fairly consistent, which is like the quick ball, seems to be good. But you don't have a quick ball for a good amount of time playing this game. So like, you just out here throwing away balls. So I hated the catching mechanism is the one thing I hated. But I really hated the fact that you had to go into a battle. Like, you just could not avoid it. That to me was I don't know if that was just like a trade-off on like, oh, you can walk around with your mons, you can send them out to a fight, but you have to have a battle. That seemed like a choice to just make the game unnecessarily frustrating when I could simply throw a ball and catch a Pokemon without starting to. And also like the battle being a battle screen versus in Arceus where it was actually open world, so it was happening in the overworld. I wish they would have kept that because you could run away from a battle. Like, you just be like, I'm over that, I'm tired of that, and just run. You didn't have to hit run, and they could be like, oh, your Pokemon can't run away from this fight. Like, I don't their legs are still intact. Why are we stuck here? You know what I mean? Like, So it was one of those things that, and I guess that's a battling, but I think it coincides the battling and the catching
Yeah.
mechanism in the
And then
overworld.
even with the battle screen, you can't see the other ones coming up on you, which they do in this game, right? They just are like moving in packs, coming out of nowhere. And so I would get out of one battle, like you already mad because you didn't catch the Pokemon. Like you done wasted 5 balls, you didn't catch the first one. You can finally get out the battle, and then there's another one right there, and you're like, you know what? I'm not
It
sure.
just triggers, and they don't let you just like, yeah, it's not again like ours is. You can get mobbed, but you can also actively just decide to leave that area. Like,
Leave.
oh, I'm out
Yeah,
of here, gotta
yeah,
blast. Like I have run away
yeah.
from several. Especially once I started having the legendaries to help me out. Like we out of here. I'm out. Like I'm not playing with y'all today. Like leave me alone. So yeah, that to me was the weakest thing was like that catching mechanism not being, like forcing us into that battle screen to catch is irritating. It makes it where, and I already only try to get the minimum amount of like Pokemon I don't care about. I just want to catch them, put in my decks. But I would catch way more just because I'm like, oh, it's a bunch over here. And I can just pop, 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 I can just catch them. Is this a battle for everyone? No, nope, leaving
Yeah.
that. I'm not getting to
I
them. I don't
did
want to do all that.
appreciate that the Terra battles let you catch Pokemon that you might not otherwise. Like I feel like a big part of my desk is decks. Pokedex is filled out because of the Terra raid battles, and like I didn't have to go searching for that one specific thing. I just pulled up on it there and was able to catch it
Oh
that
yeah.
way.
I do like I just realized that we did not, that is a setting we did not add into our list of things we want to discuss. The terror raid system goes here, so we're gonna just like you said, I love that. I mean the battles are, I mean the raids, I guess they work how they work in Sword and Shield, but they are just more, I feel like they were more, I don't know, organic. Like I was able to just run up into a raid
Mm-hmm.
much more. And maybe that's just a mental thing of just being like, you know what it is. I think because they're more randomized, and like Sword and Shield, you knew the spots, and like you would just, and it's probably the same here, but because that map is like straight chaos, and
Yeah, it
because
didn't
you
feel that
can't,
way.
it's like yeah, you like in Sword and Shield you could learn the map without having to like just by traversing it. Like you just know areas. In this game, I know areas once I land there or once I get to it. I'm like, I don't react. But like because it's so much open area that doesn't have any specific markers, it's like over here by the mountain. Like where I'm at, I don't know. But so I think it makes that exploration feel more organic. And then running into them raids feels like, oh, I'm running into a raid versus like me going to hunt. But I do love the terrestrialization. I love that as a mechanic because of the way that the terra type can be different from their normal type and how that actually gives you another dynamic in terms of choosing your battle party, in terms of how you
Mm-hmm.
approach it. Because a lot of times, especially in the terra raids, they will have a mon whose terra type is their like weakness. It'll be like a water mon,
Mm-hmm.
but
Like
like an
you go
electric
into
terra
the
type.
water battle. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so, like, granted, usually when I go into a terra raid, I go with the whatever their terra type. They stay terrestrialized the whole battle, so that's the type you
Mm-hmm.
need to focus on in terms of your offense, like attacking. However, a lot of their moves are whatever their normal type is, so it'll catch you off guard because you'll be like, okay, this is a fire terra type, but it might be like a ground regular type. So you going in there like I'm about to get them with and then you end up getting knocked out because they normal type has all of the moves that
Mm-hmm.
you are weak to. So I love that it makes you think through that and that it gives a extra level of difficulty because the further in the game you get, the easier it gets. That still provides a level of like, oop, I thought I had that in the bag and I didn't. And I like that. It keeps the difficulty it keeps it keeps you humble.
I like the visual for the Terra raids too. It was super cute. And I like that they
Mm-hmm.
kind of sped it up a bit from Sword and Shield. Like you don't have to wait for each person to like do their move. Like I feel like before it was like Nick does the move and you watch the whole thing, and then
See
DJ does
that?
the move and
This
you
is the
watch the
thing.
whole thing.
I turned that setting off. So when I would do battles, by myself. Like if I just took a terror, like a not terror, but a raid and Sword and Shield by myself, which I did a lot, especially later games.
Oh, I didn't realize you could turn it off.
You can turn off battle animations, period. So I keep battle animations on for like the first about 2-3 gyms, so I can see all my little mons move. That gets old real fast. After that, I turn it off. So by the time I was doing it, was like pop. It would just tell you they did this, they did that. I was like, that's fine. That worked for me. So it was much faster. When I started doing raids with friends who kept that setting on, I said, oh, I gotta fight y'all. We gotta have real fisticuffs because it makes a raid battle that would take like 2 minutes, take like 5 minutes, because you literally are watching it, especially in Sword and Shield, where they did it in the order, like the card game, like you put your card down, you put your card down, you put your card down, like what? So this one is a mix because you have the battle animations, but they can happen concurrently. So it's still faster than Sword and Shields, where it's like per move.
Yeah.
But it's also very chaotic if you're like, sometimes what's happening on the bar is not what's happening in the reality of the situation. Like it'll be like, oh, they health is almost gone. We like, why he ain't passed out yet? But it does make it chaotic when you are actually connecting with other users and doing the battles, because like on my end, the thing empty. I'm like, why did Pokemon ain't passed out yet? But then it's like, this person doing this move, this person doing that move. You hear the sparkles because somebody getting healed. We like, it's just like everything's happening much faster than they can visually show it, and they don't know how. And I guess this is probably a limitation because the game just has a lot
happening,
like, glitches and it's a lot visual quirks that have not been hammered out. So I think that's part of it. Like they don't know how to do a shorthand. Like 3 people hit it at the same time with a really strong move. It doesn't know how to prioritize which visual is shown and how that progress is shown. So it just be like blah, 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 and you be like, should I do a move or should I just wait for it to catch up and this thing to pass out? Like I don't be knowing what to do. Oh, and like picnics and meals. I just generally like the opportunity to bond and like give your Pokemon a bath. And I do actually, once I started using it, do like the sandwich power situation.
Yeah.
I like that conceptually. I do not like that there are so many varieties of sandwiches you can make. There's no way to filter that list. There's no way to do like, you can choose favorites, but you can't then filter it where all your favorites are at the top. Like so I don't use it because I'm not about to scroll through all these now. I'm just not doing it.
It's just so funny.
But at least you can buy sandwiches at the
You
store.
can tell like they had the list of like, okay, this all the stuff you're gonna be able to do in the game. Here's what we actually care about.
Right.
And here's what can get like basically like we didn't even go put too much thought into it because it like it could have just been done, you know, in a way more convenient way. But
no, it's just like super. Everything about the sandwich making process is the least fun thing about the entire game. And I mean that top to bottom.
There's
like,
no reason why we had to take like ingredient by ingredient. Like I should just be able to click on the sandwich, you do a cute little boop, 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 and that's it. Like it was a lot.
Like I understood it in like again the previous game where it's like in Sword and Shield we are making curry and there's like you don't want to burn it, so you stir it at a certain speed, but you still throw all the ingredients. You just pick them, you throw them. It ain't no like 1 berry, 2 berry, 3 berry. Like, can you imagine? I would never, ever, ever picnic. Like, I would never do it. And that's what you do with the sandwiches, which is why people are like, oh, you have these powers. I'm like, oh, they got powers? What that mean? It's like, oh, yeah, it got egg power. I was like, oh, my Pokemon just, I guess, like, to do things, because I always had eggs and was never making sandwiches. But once I realized you could make the sandwiches with egg power, then I was like, oh. But anyway, that whole mechanic, I love the concept of it. I love the idea of having the recipes give you certain benefits, but I hate how it's implemented in this game. Like it does feel like something that could be fixed, like adding filters and adding like quick, like if someone you already made before, you can just make it quickly. You don't have to do the whole rigmarole. But like at the current thing, I only do it specifically for reasons like, oh, I need to do a sandwich for this thing. Otherwise, I'm like, I'll just fly to a Poke Center and get the little doop doop, and we can just be done. I'm not about to do this with y'all. And then, I guess, what are your general thoughts on like their choice of like location or their location influence, and then the style of the like the visual of the game?
Yeah, no, I thought it was cool. I thought it was interesting. Yeah, I think that they've pulled from like real world locations from other games. So you could see the like bits of Spain. And I like that each, like even within the game, each town was different. Um
Yeah.
and each city had its own vibe, like had its own thing going on, and even the characters you talk
Mm-hmm.
to kind of, had their own little vibe. So like that was cool. I think they put a lot of thought into that, which is hilarious. Like then they put so much thought into that, but then not so much like the dialogue and some of the other stuff we talked. It's just funny, man. Like 'cause they could have
Yeah. No,
also
I like
like
that. That they
chosen like I can't be connected with youth in Spain. So I do not know how much overlap there is between like the slang that they use, the dialogue that they use, we know that a lot of what is considered like youth slang here is like pulled from AAVE and like social media has a lot to do with that. I don't know if that's true over there. But so it's interesting that they put so much thought into like aligning the location with like the country of influence, but then not necessarily the dial. Like I think that they could have pulled from like using
I think they went with generic for dialogue. I think they went
it
with as
feels very
neutral as
American though. Like I
possible
don't know if it is
to
generic.
the
We
yeah.
gotta
But
talk to
they
players from other countries, I
well,
guess.
I say generic because even in the like Sword and Shield was very like British, but British from a person who's only seen British things in like cartoons. Like there were certain things I'm like, this is a very like it wasn't American. It definitely wasn't, but it definitely was like an American had input.
Yeah, yeah.
Like again, it's like our interpretation. This one to me felt like they were trying to be. And by generic, I just meant like what is popular. Like what if you pull up social media or like a TikTok or YouTube, the kind of language you would hear.
But
Which
again,
I
we're
think,
on like
yeah,
American social for
we're
the
coming
most
from a
part. Like I have a few people
right,
from
but
other places I
I feel
follow.
like a lot of right, but I feel like a lot of that get exported. Like in terms of like popular TikToks and beauty tubers are like they'll be popular wherever. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things. I think they were trying to be like youthful in the broadest sense possible. Cause yeah, like all of the physical locations to me were very well thought out,
Hmm.
and I liked how they integrated with the surroundings as well. Like I really liked how things looked like these biomes felt
Yeah.
very distinct and like you kind of know exactly what it is, and they had like a cool vibe to them, and like the little snowy town has like that more old world look to it. It just kind of feels like everything. Some things are more modern depending on how more central you
Yeah.
get. Like just
Even
little
the
things that I liked, and I
Pokemon,
thought it was
right?
cool.
Like they're placed in certain locations for a reason. And it's not even like, yes, there's water Pokemon in the water, but there's certain water Pokemon in certain locations. Like it's not just like, oh, they're all
Yeah, like they're
everywhere.
in lakes and
Yeah.
in rivers.
And how
Yeah.
deep you go out in the
So I liked
sea.
that setting, and I liked how they worked. I like how the variety of Pokemon in every area. Like I feel like it's the most
Yeah.
diverse in terms of the Pokemon you will find in any given area. And like sometimes you like immediately like, why would you be here? And then it like dawns on you, or like it like okay, yeah, da, da, da. Like the real world counterpart for that makes sense. And so I felt like they were really thoughtful with placement of the Pokemon. They were really thoughtful with how the cities look outside. Now, granted, they did make it where each city is less interactive because
Hmm.
in older games you could go into like every single
Yeah.
person's house, and then you have a conversation with those people. And yeah, I don't love to do it, but I also did it all the time. I'm like, they might have some
No, I liked it.
I
I
might
was like,
need.
I'm in, I'm out. Like I go to my Pokemon Center,
But it's
I
just
get my little sandwich ingredients, I do the gym, out.
right. So I was like, I actually like that the cities were specific for what you wanted. I thought a funny thing I discovered last night while I was playing with your partner. We were like out here in these streets. Now he was like, "Oh, you need the water power to get this Toros," and I was like, "Cool, I'm gonna just go ahead and find a sandwich that's already cooked because I'm not doing this." So we was looking for places where I could buy the food. And one of the places is called Deli
Yes.
Cioso. 2 words. I'm like delicioso. Like it's so simple, but I was like, I just love that's a cute little
Yeah.
thing, and I'm like wondering how many of those things I haven't noticed because I just noticed that yesterday. Like delicioso, I see you. And there are a few times where they use Spanish,
Yeah.
uh, slang or not slang, but Spanish terms in You know what would have been funny? And I'm about to like I'm cackling in my heart because I'm like, what if somebody would have been like, "Where have you been, Loca?" That would have been the funniest thing in the whole wide world if
But
they would
they
have
would
got
have
that
had
in
to
there. Like
have
I'm
actual youth
just
knowledge to do that, and not just like
not even see. That's not even youth.
I
That
mean,
honestly, that wouldn't even be youth
yeah,
knowledge.
it's
That's
like, but
millennial knowledge. You got
still,
to be at least 27 for that to really register to hit. But the point being that you would have to have like a good
right,
understanding of like popular
right. Like
culture
you
and
got to
like.
be in it. You can't just
But can you
be
imagine? Because that honestly is. I think I said that when I was playing one time because Nimona ran up and I was like, "Where have you been, Logan?" Because it was like a big gap between the last time I had seen her, and like that was the thought I had. But it would have actually fit dialogue wise and style wise because they actually use like Spanish terms and stuff. But I'm just like, it's yeah, I don't know what they be doing. Like I love the setting visually, and I like. Also, we're talking about Violet specifically. Me and DJ both played Violet. I do believe that Scarlet has certain things are visually different
mhm.
because Scarlet is more the historical and Violet is the more futuristic. So I think that might have also been reflected in some of the buildings. Like I don't know if the school looks the same or not. I think it would because I think
I think
ours
it's just
look
the Pokemon
something is different.
mainly that like
There are a few Pokemon. I think they visually. I don't know if the school look exactly the same. I mean, if it looks different, I can't remember now. I haven't looked at the Scarlet screenshot in a while. Yeah, but the Pokemon are also older looking, and I wonder if that also because they use the same dialogue and stuff. But I wonder if they had made any tweaks to adjust or to account for the fact that they are in a more old school historical setting.
now. One thing I have very strong feelings about before we go to overall feelings and like have to close this one out in terms of style and aesthetic. Why could I not get a skirt for my uniform in this game? I do not understand. I understand that we have to wear a school uniform. Fine. There are lots of school uniforms that have skirts. Why are my options
Yeah,
long pants, ugly shorts? It,
yeah. I
styling
think
my character was so hard for this one. Like I like the hairstyles. There could have been a few more, beyond just like chunky braids, whatever. Fine. We got a fade. I had a bob for half the time. That was fine. But like the clothes, this it's like no, no. They went so far with
yeah. I
R&Bs
actually
and
never
came so
did.
far back. It was unfortunate.
Yeah, I was say I didn't do customization at all really. A because there's too many stores. And I'm not doing all that. It's like irritating to go to each store to find certain things. But also none of it really improved because the uniforms are ugly and you can't change that. So I was like, if I can't change the source of the issue, there is no point in
I thought
trying
it
to
was just me. And then I
like
Googled,
put a
I
lipstick on
Googled
a
like
pig.
how do I get a skirt? And there was like a whole ass Reddit being like,
Yeah.
I was like, it's not just
But
me.
actually, I think what they thought they were doing were like we wanted where all the clothing items are neutral. Is what I think they thought. They
Skirts
thought
can
we
be
want all the
neutral,
clothing
Game
items to
Freak.
work for whichever. But they are very gender essentialist because you can't not choose a gender, for example. And I didn't even realize I actively chose the gender when I
Yeah.
did. I
No,
just
they make
chose
you.
the face that I
And
like that
some
was
of the
cute.
dialogue
And they were like,
is
she. I'm like,
changed based on it too. Like Jerome's character gets
right, which is
called,
like,
I don't remember, something completely different than I think we get called like young lady, or if you pick like a female
mm-hmm.
character versus like
And they say
student
like,
or
yeah,
people
and
or
then
stuff.
stuff like that. But that doesn't. They could just use neutral language, and then they don't have to
Right.
have two scripts. Like that's the easy thing. But also, I think that was the same thing. They were like, oh, pants. Everybody can wear pants, but not everybody can wear skirts. I'm like, they can't. It's called kilt.
Like
Y'all are in Europe
literally, what
apparently.
would it
So,
matter? It's just a weird like you're
like,
there when they're playing the game, right? Like
right? I don't. I never. So one
no
like
one.
a lot of people when it first dropped were like, yeah, you can actually go to stores and buy stuff, but like my experience with it was like, oh, this there's no point in this. So I did. That's why I have so much money because I didn't buy clothes at all. I think I bought like a phone case because every time the phone pull out, it's like you can see it, but that's it. Like I didn't. I don't. I don't think I bought. I bought like a beanie, which doesn't
I
even go
bought
with the
one pair
fade,
of
and I
boots
didn't
and
change
that
my
was it.
hair. So
And I wore the
right,
winter
and I
uniform
was
the whole
like, but
time because it was the least egregious.
I think I wore the fall because I like the blazer situation. I think that's fall. The blazer, the clean little look. That's the best looking one to me. I don't know what Summer doing. Why are we out here like this?
It is so
Why are we
bad.
out here like this? And then it's like again, they have the opportunity, like the option to buy like tights and stuff, and it's like that just makes it worse. You are making it now. We all dressing like Leon. Now we all look like Leon because y'all out here with the foolishness. Like it just so the customization is another, I guess, aspect of the like gameplay and stuff that actually I loved in theory and was like so happy to. Oh, you could get all this customization, and you actually couldn't. Like it's very restrictive because in Sword and Shield, you had a lot of options. Then once you got further in the game, or when you got I don't know if it's when you got like the DLC added more hair or something. I don't know, but you ended up with way more options. You could change everything, change your shirt, change pants, and I can see again forcing you into the color scheme of the uniform and certain types of things. Like you gotta wear a blouse, you gotta wear some type of khaki. I mean not khaki, some type of like work pant or short, but it can't be blah blah. You can't wear jeans or like whatever. But if you gave us the ugliest outfit that we can't change no aspects of, like even that little puffy vest on that one ugly outfit. Like if I could change the color of the vest ain't even school colors. That's just a random vest. I can't make this a pink vest. Like it's like the layer stuff. Like at least let me change the layers or something, please. What are these shorts? Why are these boots so large? Or you know what I mean? Like it was yeah. So I ended up not doing no customization at all. Like I made my character and they have not changed. I haven't went to a salon because you also can't see the salon stuff until you pay. And I was at the time I was like, well, I don't know if they have anything different. I think they usually do have more options than when you create the character. So I'm like, I'm fine. So I just haven't done it. So I actually haven't done any customization except for like one beanie I bought that I never wear because like it doesn't go with the fade at all. Yeah, so that was one of the things that another thing kind of like the sandwich is like I like the theory. I definitely like the concept, but it wasn't fully fleshed out in a way that makes it fun and adds to the gameplay. Yeah.
So in terms of wrapping up, like our last two questions here are just how did your experience playing Violet match up to your expectations? And what would you like to see Pokemon do next? For games or otherwise? Because we talked about games a lot this season. They were going to pivot for next season and dive into the anime a bit. But yeah, like, how did it match up to your expectations, and what are you hoping to see?
Yeah, in terms of my like, it was kind of in certain places it surpassed, and in certain places it didn't meet. And it's because I was feeling like Arceus was a testing ground, so they were going to take more from Arceus. Like I thought or wanted it to be more like Arceus refined. So like I wanted us to have that same open world. I love the open world Arceus, and that was my favorite aspect of like I can walk around, I can walk in and out of like these battles. You can also get hurt as a player, which again is like that just added a realism and it makes you have to be on your toes and like have to pay attention. You not just do no stakes or whatever. Like it gave it stakes. So I thought they were going to keep that level of open worldness. I thought the open world would function the same, and then they would just add or tweak stuff to go with the setting. Because obviously Arceus is, but it's not modern day, whereas this game is. So I wanted them to keep that open world the same. I would love them to have kept the fighting mechanism and the catching mechanism, where all of that happens without going into a fight screen, and you could just post up. And even when you start a fight, it's again not in the fight screen. You always have that out. You always have because it's happening live. So I wish they would have kept that, or at least something close to it. I can understand that when you add raid battles and you add all this other story element, you don't necessarily have the open world can be as unrestricted because those resources have to be used elsewhere. But I do still kind of wish they would have kept a little bit of that. So that part is where it didn't match up for me. What I was surpassed in my expectations was the story, because I actually do think they gave us 3 good story paths. And if you do one of them, you still get a really, I think, entertaining experience. But if you do all of them to the credits roll, especially, you have a really fulfilling story to have witnessed and experienced. And I think as an adult playing it, I feel like, oh, this is really cool. And I kind of like the idea of kids.
I literally had the same thought. Like, this would have been so cool to play through as a kid. Like, think about what we had in like
Right.
98 or whatever. This is wild.
Yeah. No, I love that. To me, the story was surprisingly. I don't expect, and I never expect the story to be bad, but I don't have expectations of the story. A lot of the story is just a thing that they have, that you have a reason to battle, right? Whereas I felt the story here was really cute, and like they had like moments of genuine, like they really got you invested. Like again, they kind of undermined it with Arvin and them, but like I was like the first time that story pops up, I'm just like, oh, we getting deep, and I just love that. That was a thing that I wasn't expecting at all, to be like invested in any character to that level. And the fact that we got 3 of those, or like 2 stories, I would say, and then that overall story, that was all really well done. So that surpassed my expectations. Some of the gameplay mechanics that, like Terrestrializer, ended up being a really fun thing. And I would say like the multiplayer is a middle ground. So it's better than, like, the fact that it exists is good. And I love that we can run around together, right? I do think that, and this might be just a Switch limitation and not a Pokemon game limitation, because the multiplayer is also still just like, you have to do so much at all times to engage in multiplayer. Like every trade, you got to put in a code or something. It's like, if we all hanging out, we should just be able to pull out our phone, play what you want, and just have a trade live because we're in the same game session, right? Nope, still got to do the whole link code thing with the terror rate battle. Somebody starts it, they used to have to be invited in. We can't all just walk up to the person and be like, let's fight this together. Stuff like that. But it's an improvement because we even have a multiplayer that qualifies as multiplayer, because you are actively playing with somebody at the same time versus it just being battles or whatever. But because multiplayer has existed as a concept for a very long time, it's still like, yes, we finally got something that's multiplayer, but it's still very basic in terms of our experience with multiplayer in other games, especially on other systems where you can literally turn on a PlayStation. I can see my friends playing something, press join game, and be in their game in like a few, without having it. That I don't have to communicate with them. I just pop up like, I'm in here. We'll be fighting. You know what I mean? So that part is left something to be desired, because I was like, oh, if I get multiplayer, they took so long, it's gonna be so lit. Because like y'all know what we want at this point, and they were like,
yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if it is
but we
a
ain't gonna go
console
all the
thing.
way. I kind of think it is, because I think multiplayer in every game I play is not great. Like Animal Crossing, like you gotta go put all the codes in. I mean, you don't have to enter the codes, but just the whole thing is, it's just nothing is seamless. Like everything takes several steps, which I charge to the Switch skewing very young, so they want to make it very hard for young kids
to just talk with
connect with adults,
anyone.
especially. But like, to just, you're right, which I understand, but I'm like, that can be something y'all turn off on a console level, where like a parent has to unlock that ability or something. But grown people should be able to just connect without having to go through like 3 steps. So yeah, that's why I say I'm gonna charge it to the console. I'm gonna charge it to the Switch is not a brand new console as of today, right? Like it's not like a PS5 came out, it's still fairly new. The new whatever the Xbox is, but the Switch is a little bit older now. It's more aligned with the PS4 or whatever. So there's also age. Like they're not gonna go in and fix something or add something to a console that they probably like be in the second half of this console's life. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's one of the big disappointments. Only because I can see how it should work. I can see you so close. You so close. But we can't actually do it, so it doesn't live up to it. But I do enjoy it. So that, for me, it's a little bit of both. Like it surpassed in ways, but the ways that it surpassed, I think, are more important to me than the ways that it failed or didn't live up to. Because again, like longevity wise, I feel like when I think back about it, I'm gonna probably remember these stories, and especially the last plot. Like I'm gonna be thinking about that, like, damn, I can't believe they did that. Like more than I'm gonna be like, oh, I couldn't do the trade without putting in the code, you know. So I like, in terms of games, what I want to see Pokemon do next is, I really feel like they kind of almost had it with Arceus. I think Arceus was, mechanics wise, gameplay wise, was so close that I like, this is what I actually want it to be. But you sprinkle in like a multiplayer, add a little more story that like goes, because the Arceus story is also cute, whatever. Like it makes sense. It's just because of the setting, they can only do so much with that, right? So yeah, like taking a little bit more from Arceus, taking what did work really well with this one, and then like just fully going like committing to open world though. I think like just completely leaning into open world as the way that it goes, and not having like the fight screens and like, even if, I mean, this is probably not on this Switch, but like raid battles, like you literally go into a cave and like it's a whole, like you can just start a battle without it being the waiting screen and all that other stuff. Like having that be a live thing could be cool. Like that's the next, I think, evolution of that system. Can you imagine? You just go up in there with your little like Togepi because you ain't know, and you walk up in the cave and it's like you gotta fight this Tyranitar. You be like, that would be fun, and it would make you always thinking about like what Pokemon to keep in your party and have at the front. And it's in the general in Pokemon. I'm excited for them to move forward with like new characters in the like storytelling, so in like the anime and the films, and having older characters. I do feel like the last couple of games, the characters themselves have been older. Like Arceus, I think you're like 15. And this one, I don't think we're. I don't know how we're supposed to be asking. The Mona is given. She maybe got a like a driver's permit. So I think it's roughly the same, like 15. I don't know, because we're starting school in the middle of and the oldest students are 107, so it's hard to judge age in that situation.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of that. Even if they end up doing it sort of in the same way that you have to pick your character's gender or whatever, like if you could pick like the age, like, I want to play as like a 12-year-old, I want to play as like an adult character, like, and sort of changing the story for that might be one way to do it. Because I understand that they don't want to make it like they have to consider all audiences. I get that. I think even
Right.
the like choice to bring back the battle screen and stuff like that, I wonder if part of that is um thinking about the younger audience too. Like it's easier when my kids watch me play for them to follow what's happening in Violet than it was with Arceus. They watch both, like they're sort of entertained by both, but like that was interesting also to see. It's just sort of like, oh, maybe blocking it in this way was intentional for that reason. But I agree that I liked a lot of the Arceus mechanics too, and they seem to be really be leaning into like I didn't have much expectations for the story or plot line a few games back, but they seem to be really leaning into that now with the last few games, and
Mm-hmm.
so that seems to be one big focus for them as they like test out different mechanics and figure out what that looks like. So yeah.
And for the Pokemon series as a whole, outside of games, any final like thoughts or desires or things you want to see?
I mean, we're gonna do an episode on that next week, so I'll probably have more thoughts then. But yeah, I'm excited for like new like I think the next series is going to be in Paldea, so that's cool because we just got to play the game here and like learn the
Oh
places,
yeah.
and so I'm excited for that. I think that'll be super fun to see all the Pokemon that we just got to know and like see like the school. Oh my gosh, if the characters go to the school, if they have like characters from the game, like that'll be fun. So I'm excited for that.
It would be fun to see characters doing normal things like having like going to school, for example. Like it didn't even dawn on me like that actually is such a novel concept in Pokemon that it would actually be interesting to see because they just be out in streets. And I'm like, how about a touch of stability for the babies? So yeah, I agree. Well, thanks for listening to our full review of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, mainly Violet. Join us next week for our final episode of the season, where we'll share our reactions to some of the recent announcements about the Pokemon anime series. Subscribe to our YouTube at Black Pokemon Pod, BLK Pokemon Pod, to catch both episodes and live streams.
We're BLK Pokemon Pod on all socials. You can follow us and talk to us using the hashtag Outta Pocket. Thanks, y'all.